The streets of black neighborhoods in the 1970s held a kind of freedom that has completely vanished from childhood today. Children roamed those blocks with a fearlessness that seems almost reckless by modern standards. They climbed trees until branches cracked beneath their weight. They rode bicycles down steep hills with no helmets, no knee pads, just wind in their faces and the thrill of speed. They settled disputes with their fists, dusted themselves off, and went right back to playing. Fear was not absent from their lives, but it was managed differently, channeled through a system that taught resilience instead of caution. That fearlessness was not accidental. It was manufactured through a specific formula that combined freedom, accountability, and the kind of tough love that would horrify child psychologists today. Black parents in the 1970s understood something that has been lost. Children needed to face the world's dangers while still young enough to learn from them. Scraped knees taught caution. Broken toys taught responsibility. Neighborhood conflicts taught negotiation. Every fall, every failure, every consequence was a lesson that built armor for adulthood. The freedom began at dawn and ended when the streetlights flickered on at dusk. That was the only rule that mattered. Between those two markers, children disappeared into a world that belonged entirely to them. They left the house after breakfast and might not return until dinner. Nobody called to check on them, nobody tracked their location, nobody scheduled their activities or supervised their play. The understanding was simple: stay in the neighborhood, don't get into serious trouble, and come home when the lights come on. This was not neglect. It was intentional preparation for a world that would not be kind to black children once they grew up. Parents knew their kids would face racism, economic hardship, and systems designed to break them. The streets were the training ground. If a child could not handle a scraped knee, how would they handle a racist teacher? If they cried over a lost game, how would they handle job rejection? The 1970s streets were tough, but they were supposed to be. That was the point. The neighborhood itself functioned as a collective guardian. Every adult on the block had permission to correct, discipline, or redirect any child they saw misbehaving. Mrs. Johnson, 2 doors down, would yell at you for running through her flower bed. Mr. Williams on the corner would send you home if he caught you cursing. The lady at the corner store watched everyone and reported back to parents with frightening accuracy. This network meant the children were never truly unsupervised, but they were also never coddled. When a child got into trouble in someone else's yard, the punishment was swift and public. The neighbor would handle it right there, maybe with a stern talking to or a light swat on the behind, then send the child home with instructions to tell their parents what happened. And the child had to tell, because if the neighbor called first, the punishment at home would be twice as bad. This system created accountability without constant parental presence. Children learned that actions had consequences everywhere, not just when mom was watching. The physical risks that children took in the 1970s would cause modern parents to call child protective services. They climbed onto garage roofs to retrieve balls. They played in abandoned lots filled with rusty metal and broken glass. They rode in the backs of pickup trucks, sitting on wheel wells with nothing to hold on to. They built ramps for their bikes and launched themselves into the air, landing hard on concrete and asphalt. Injuries were common, expected, and treated with minimal fuss. When a child came home bleeding, the response was practical rather than panicked. The wound was cleaned with whatever was available, sometimes rubbing alcohol that burned like fire, sometimes just soap and water. Bandages were applied. If the bleeding stopped and nothing looked broken, the child was sent back outside. "You're fine," mothers would say, barely looking up from whatever task occupied them. This was not cruelty. It was teaching children that minor pain was survivable, that they could handle adversity without falling apart. Broken bones received more attention, but still less than today's standard. A trip to the emergency room meant the injury was serious, not just painful. Sprains, bruises, and cuts were handled at home. Children learned to assess their own injuries, to distinguish between hurt and harm. They developed pain tolerance and body awareness that made them harder to break.
When life hit them later, as it inevitably would, they already knew how to take a punch. The games children played in the 1970s streets required courage that modern playgrounds have designed out of existence. Double Dutch jump rope turned so fast that mistiming meant getting whipped by heavy rope. Dodgeball was played with hard rubber balls thrown with real force, leaving welts and sometimes bloody noses. Tree climbing competitions pushed kids higher and higher until someone chickened out or fell. The winner was whoever went highest, not whoever stayed safest.
Physical fights between children were handled with a philosophy that seems barbaric now. When two kids got into it, adults often let them finish. The rule was simple. If you started it, you better be able to finish it. If someone hit you first, you had every right to defend yourself. Parents did not immediately intervene or call other parents to complain. They let children work it out, knowing that backing down from every conflict created adults who could not stand up for themselves. After the fight ended, there was no mediation circle or conflict resolution meeting. The kids either became friends again or they avoided each other. Either outcome was acceptable. The important lesson was that actions had consequences, that violence was serious, and that you had to live with the results of your choices. Children who started fights frequently found themselves friendless. Children who never stood up for themselves became targets. The social dynamics were harsh but clear. The schoolyard operated under similar rules. Teachers turned a blind eye to minor scuffles, intervening only when someone was clearly overmatched or injured. Bullies existed, but they were dealt with by other children, not by adult intervention. If you got bullied, you either fought back, got tougher, or found allies. The system was brutal, but it produced children who could defend themselves emotionally and physically. Parents in the 1970s believed that struggle built character. They did not shield their children from disappointment or failure. If you did not make the team, you practiced harder. If you failed a test, you studied more. If you broke something valuable, you worked to replace it. There was no participation trophy, no grade inflation, no softening of consequences. You earned what you got, and if you did not earn it, you did not get it. This extended to household responsibilities. Children as young as 6 or 7 had real chores with real consequences for failure. They washed dishes, swept floors, took out trash, and watched younger siblings. These were not optional character-building exercises. They were necessary contributions to household functioning. A child who did not do their chores heard about it immediately and faced punishment that ranged from lost privileges to physical discipline. The threat of physical discipline hung over childhood like a constant reminder of boundaries. Parents in the 1970s believed in spanking, switching, and the belt. The mere threat was often enough to ensure compliance. Keep it up and see what happens was a warning that children took seriously. This was not abuse in their minds. It was correction, teaching, preparation for a world that would punish them far more harshly than a spanking ever could. The philosophy behind this discipline was explicit. I'm going to hurt you a little now so the world doesn't hurt you a lot later. Black parents knew their children would face racism, poverty, and systemic oppression. They believed that thick skin and high pain tolerance were survival tools. A child who cried over a spanking would not survive being called racial slurs at work. A child who could not handle disappointment would not survive being passed over for promotions they deserved. Walking to school alone, sometimes miles, was standard for children as young as 6 or 7. They navigated streets without crosswalk guards or parent escorts. They knew the route, they knew the rules, and they were expected to get there safely. If they were late, there were consequences at school and at home. If they took a detour or stopped to play, someone always saw and reported back. The freedom came with accountability. These walks to school taught navigation, time management, and situational awareness. Children learned which streets to avoid, which dogs were aggressive, which neighbors were friendly. They learned to read their environment, to sense danger, and to trust their instincts. By the time they were teenagers, they could navigate the city independently, a skill that many young adults lack. The independence extended to entertainment. Children created their own games with whatever materials they found. A stick became a sword, a rock became a ball. Chalk turned sidewalks into elaborate game boards. They invented rules, negotiated disputes, and kept themselves occupied for hours without adult direction or expensive toys. Boredom was not a problem parents solved. It was a challenge children overcame through creativity. Summer days stretched endlessly with no camps, no structured activities, no planned enrichment. Children woke up, ate breakfast, and disappeared until hunger brought them home for lunch. Then they disappeared again until the streetlights came on. This unstructured time built resourcefulness, imagination, and social skills that organized activities cannot replicate. They learned to form groups, establish hierarchies, and navigate complex social dynamics without adult interference. The neighborhood park was where children gathered, a space that belonged to them more than to any adult authority. They claimed territories, established traditions, and created their own culture. The big kids had the basketball court, the middle kids had the playground, the little kids had the swings. This hierarchy was maintained through unspoken rules that everyone understood. Challenging those rules meant conflict, which is how the hierarchy stayed stable. Playing until dark meant something different in the 1970s. It meant dirt under fingernails, sweat-soaked clothes, and exhaustion that led to deep sleep. It meant coming home filthy, hungry, and happy. Parents expected this. A clean child who came home early raised suspicion. What was wrong? Why weren't you playing? Being dirty was proof of a productive day. Being injured was proof of trying something difficult. The fearlessness of these children showed itself in their willingness to explore beyond their immediate neighborhood. They ventured to other blocks, other parks, other territories. Sometimes this led to conflicts with children from other areas, small turf wars that were taken seriously by the kids involved, but largely ignored by adults. These conflicts taught loyalty, courage, and the understanding that the world had boundaries worth defending. When children got lost, which happened occasionally, they figured it out. They asked directions from adults who looked trustworthy, they retraced their steps, they used landmarks to navigate home. Getting lost was scary, but survivable, another lesson in self-reliance. Modern children with GPS-enabled phones will never know that particular fear or the triumph of finding their way home alone. The resilience built during these years showed itself in how children handled failure. Falling off a bike meant getting back on. Losing a fight meant training to win next time. Missing a shot meant practicing until you made it. There was no quitting because something was hard. You either figured it out or you failed, and failing taught you something valuable. This fearlessness carried into adolescence and adulthood. Children raised in 1970s Black neighborhoods became adults who could handle adversity, who did not crumble under pressure, who knew how to take a hit and keep moving. They faced racism with thick skin, they handled poverty with creativity, they navigated a hostile world with the same toughness they learned on those streets. The question modern parents ask is whether this kind of childhood was worth the risks. The answer depends on what you value. Those children got hurt, they got scared, they faced dangers that could have ended badly, but they also became adults who could stand on their own, who did not need constant validation, who knew that the world was tough and they were tougher. That fearlessness was not recklessness, it was preparation. And for Black children who would grow up to face systemic oppression, that preparation was not optional, it was survival.
Black children in the 1970s roamed neighborhoods with a fearlessness that has completely disappeared from modern childhood. They climbed trees, rode bikes without helmets, and settled disputes with their fists. This wasn't neglect, it was intentional preparation. Parents used tough love, community accountability, and freedom within boundaries to raise children who could handle a hostile world. From the streetlight rule to neighborhood adults who disciplined any child they saw misbehaving, this system built resilience that modern parenting has abandoned. Discover why 1970s Black kids were tougher, braver, and more independent than today's generation, and what we lost when we gave up these methods. This is the story of a childhood that shaped warriors, not because it was easy, but because it was designed to be hard.